And we're live. Welcome, peeps. This is the Superhero Podcast. I'm Jonno Proudfoot, and I have a very special guest here today. We have co-founder of the Noakes Foundation, MD, but not in a medical doctor way, in the managing director way of the Nutrition Network, Jayne Bullen. Hello, Jayne.
Hello. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, great to have you. And the reason we have you here, for those of you watching, is because you have the world, not just the South Africa or Cape Town, the world, the inaugural World Nutrition Summit starting off on Thursday this week. Tell us about why you are doing a World Nutrition Summit.
So, yeah, I mean, thanks for asking that, because it's an interesting name that we all came up with over a brainstorm exactly a year ago, and a year and 3 weeks ago, just before COVID hit South Africa. I think we had patient one, maybe not even yet, and we were all together in the real world, and we booked a fabulous, massive, biggest venue in South Africa almost for this event that was meant to happen live in Cape Town. And while we were talking about it and what we really wanted from it, we realized that we didn't want to be another keto club. We didn't want to go to another conference that had all the same keto guys, all the same converts, that was purely focused on low carb. And obviously why not was because we wanted to talk bigger. So we realized that we have to talk broader, we have to be much more inclusive. Diversity is one of our strengths in the nutritional game. And also we really want to get to the truth of nutrition. So it's the world, because obviously nutrition applies to the world. So it absolutely applies very much to where you live, what you have access to, like what your religious and cultural belief systems are around food. But beyond that, the actual science is very global. And we're seeing that. We're seeing the same stories coming up everywhere in the world and in all kind of demographics around the world to varying degrees. So it's about the world. It's about all of us, every single one of us, and the complexities that we face in our own unique ecosystems that we live in. It's about nutrition and all food. So we're talking all different diets. All different philosophies are welcome and invited, and it's a summit because we want people to come together, and we were hoping it would be a live summit, but what's happened is because it's an e-summit, the world has come together in an online platform as per the world that we live in now a year later. So it's a really cool, exciting time to be doing this, I think.
Yeah,
and we absolutely
love the and no, I mean it does have a sort of certain austerity to it. And so what you mentioned is interesting, because that was my impression. You know, we had the Old Mutual Health Summit in 2015, and it was definitely like the Old Mutual Low Carb Summit, you know. And so I agree with you. There is this this sort of, you know, because I'm sure that people who are not low carb also have their own nutrition summits, but it's very difficult to get like everyone talking in the same room without like, I don't know, butt kicking off or anything. So I'd be interested to hear like what other angles are at the conference, and maybe we can get into some nitty gritty after that about the actual agenda.
So actually, just to take one step back and to say that actually for years, and this is a long journey that we've all been on in this low carb journey and the journey with Prof. Tim Noakes' trial, I've been trying to get a round table conversation. So I've been wanting to sit and actually kind of talk it out with people from different dietary perspectives and with different very set beliefs and different faiths, and to kind of come up with some commonalities. And it's been so unbelievably difficult that we almost gave up, you know, and we just kind of focused on what we know and the evidence-based science. And we went, okay, we're going to keep doing what we know works, keep working with that, keep finding new ways, keep talking to government, keep talking to policymakers, and wanting to broaden the conversation, but to a large degree unsuccessfully. You know, there seem to be these polarized camps around things. There's a lot of polarization around food, which is understandable. And also the actual macronutrients and the things that make up our diets are also very polarized. So such a topical, interesting area to work in, and also hugely complex and controversial and polarized and interesting and challenging. And we know that, you know that as well as I do.
Totally.
So big topic threads in this convention is actually around ethics and nutritional ethics. So we've got some unbelievable speakers and panels that look at, so we have a course on the Nutrition Network, which is called Ethics, which we kind of think is one of the most important courses that we've ever done, because it touches on the appropriacy and ethics of dietary prescription, which is a huge, complex, interesting, meaty area. So we've got some amazing people like Advocate Joan Adams, who was the judge on the Noakes trial, giving an amazing We've got a really, really cool panel on one of the days. I think it's on day 2, that is like an ethics 101, where we look at ethics, and we also look at some really interesting research that's happening at the Noakes Foundation at the moment by Travis Noakes, which is around online bullying, academic freedom. Which really touches on the heart. He also Travis Noakes gives a talk, and he's on that panel, but it really goes into the actual heart of this matter, which is around censorship, freedom of speech, freedom to eat what you want and to choose what you want to eat. And then beyond that, we go quite deeply into the topics of things like sustainability, and the environmental movements, and how that and science work together and don't work together in some cases. So there's a lot of very interesting content around ethics that I'm really excited about. And then, of course, research. We can talk about what's going on there. And then I'm really excited you're giving an amazing talk as well, which is something I haven't seen yet, and I'm saving for the day because I'm so excited about it. So it's super packed 3 days, actually.
No, it does look super exciting, and like I've been into the back end, fiddling around with my documents and everything, and what I can say already is that it's so professional. Like I always wondered how you would execute that same feeling, like the buzz of when you're at a live event and you can like walk out and see a speaker in passing, or communicate with other members, and in a way, if you're not super socially outgoing, being in a live event can, you can see someone who you'd love to go and speak to and feel like, oh, it's like awkward. Whereas in the online space, there are actually designated rooms where you can go and speak to people, and it's obviously online, so you can spark up conversations, literally with the click of the mouse. So I think it is like super pro engagement. I'm super excited about that element about it. Before we go into the agenda, 'cause I know that we're going to get there, but you mentioned policy, and so like the first question in my mind is like, are you trying to get low carb into policy, or what kind of policy conversations have you been having already in South Africa, or is it South Africa?
So we have, within the Noakes Foundation, we've got our community outreach division called Eat Better South Africa. And for years, we've been punting the same story and reiterating different pilots of the same program, which we've now proven through an ethics-approved study and through various sustainability assessments of the program that it works. And what that is it's not a keto program. It's not it's not banting. It's an eat better. So we take what people are eating in local communities and we assess what they're eating. We replace foods on the same budget. So we've gone down to around 12 Rand a day, which is well under $1 a day for food. And we've seen similar to the same results. So what we've proven is that people on very, very low budgets and coming from underserved communities can make lifelong lasting changes to their health without any medical intervention necessarily, and without actually having to increase their budget, be fortified, subsidized, babied, treated differently to anyone else. They're very empowered and they're very successful at changing their health when they are given the right information. So we've been taking this to different places, different departments within the sort of health and healthcare sectors for years now, and haven't been heard, despite the most remarkable results. And I talk about them in my talk, which is on day 2 in the morning, called Future Food. I share some of those results. We've also got one of the researchers presenting the results from a bigger study, but it's unbelievable. And you know this, Jonno. I mean, you see this on the RMR. You get people you transform people's lives by changing their diets. It's very simple, but it's unbelievably difficult to get that message through. So it's very much about finding ways to, what we're lobbying on about with policy is we want poor people to have the right access to good foods and information as everyone else. So we don't want healthy diets to be something that's like a diet for the wealthy, or for people that have money and live in privileged areas. We want people that live in every community in South Africa, which is so diverse, and ideally around the world, to just be able to make like quite simple dietary changes to live longer lives. I mean, it's basically giving them a couple of extra decades of their life. So we want to be heard for that, and we'd like to share that message, but we also want to hear other diets that work and other perspectives that work, and really to collaborate more. So totally. Interesting time.
Yeah, I think what I'm taking away from that is the first thing you said is removing unhealthy foods or replacing them with healthy foods. And obviously health, like what is healthy has there's a range there. But I think what you're saying is like replacing a junk food with a real food, which I think all of us are like, yes, that's great. But the second thing you said is almost more important, which is empowering people with information. And I think that's a massively important and way underestimated thing. I mean, even in our customers, sort of who are highly educated, sort of high-end customers, that's the real meal kind of participants. And they arrive needing to be educated. And these are people who have had the best schooling, often from first world countries, and still do not know like what a healthy food is. And like for us, just seeing them get that knowledge is empowering. And then you bring that down to the level in South Africa where, base level education is embarrassing actually. And yeah, so sign me up, like that's amazing. Okay.
So, can I just add to that though, which is really interesting and what we're seeing on the Nutrition Network is that actually medical professionals that are trained with postgraduate degrees are also not empowered in a lot of places, in most places I would argue, around nutritional prevention, like preventative discussions of disease, and they don't have that conversation necessarily with patients. So the work that we do, which is very simple, that we've applied into a more medical context, is equally astounding and educational for everyone, and that's the interesting thing. It's like we've been churning along in this kind of sick care model for decades, and healthcare has kind of bought into the sick care model, which is just prescribe, and suddenly they go, oh my gosh, my patients are coming off medication. I can't believe this because this isn't what the Merck manual told me.
Yeah,
so it's an empowerment from all tiers actually that we're seeing.
Oh, that's awesome. So, okay, so tell us what we can expect. So I thought it started on Thursday, but you said it starts on Friday. Okay, so it starts on Thursday, and then what happens?
So on Thursday, so we've got the amazing Michael Mole. For those of you that are overseas, you might not know him, but South Africans know his face from so many different places. And he's a very, very interesting doctor that's been on a very interesting journey with food and nutritional dietary work through his career. So he is our MC, which we're so excited to have. And then Thursday morning, we go straight into it with our keynote speaker first. Prof. Noakes is up, and he's talking about a decade of challenging the diet dictators. So he's bringing some stories from the road, from his trial. He's debunking a lot of myths. He's, of course, speaking very much from his LCHF journey where he reversed his diabetes. Then we've got cardiologist Brett Scher. We've got both our medical directors, Hasina Kaji and Neville Wellington, speaking that morning. So don't miss the first morning, because that's a really, really important morning where you're going to get a lot of kind of information and science. Then the afternoons.
Sorry for those watching, Brett Scher, he is the community manager for Diet Doctor, is that right?
Yes. So he's a cardiologist, and he's kind of moved into much more educational, nutritional content in the last couple of years.
Great. And so I didn't want to degrade his reputation, but he's a cardiologist who is also the Diet Doctor. So he's got many high-level credentials. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Really, really interesting talk. So there's a lot on. Then we've got in the afternoon an amazing colleague of ours that runs community centers that reverse chronic disease in Kenya. So a different kind of context of the work we do in Eat Better South Africa, Eat Better Kenya. They have an amazing clinic, inpatient clinic there, Dr. Mulacha. Jason Fong, who's talking about cancer and the role of nutrition in cancer. Nasha Winters, who's an amazing preventative, she's an oncologist, nutritional oncologist. She treats patients with nutrition, and she's a naturopath as well. She's giving a talk on the connection between stress and insulin and how that plays into disease. And then we've got an amazing ophthalmologist, Dr. John Cripps, who talks about nutrition in the eye. And he's got some incredible data that we've seen over time around how to improve how to reverse macular degeneration, basically, by correcting your diets and particularly your omega ratios. Unbelievable. And then the first day we finish off with an amazing panel where we can't not, look, this is a nutrition summit, but there's no ways we can't not bring COVID into this. It's such a prevalent story. So we've got some people that are kind of working on the road in the COVID wards, on the front line, that are just sharing with us trends and data around comorbidities and their own experiences of where we're at with COVID. So that's a kind of a way to wrap day one, which I'm really excited about. I'm excited to hear their stories, how things are changing and shifting locally and internationally, and what the comorbidities, which we know are also, again, nutritionally connected. So that's going to be a really cool panel. And that's day one only.
That's nuts. Yeah, that's insane. That's 8 hours, hey, or 7 hours.
Yeah. So there's
That's
also
cool.
breakouts in between there. Every day we've got some movement, either dance, yoga, high intensity interval training, different kind of things to get everyone moving a little bit, because I can't sit for 3 days in front of a screen. I'll go mad. So very excited about that as well. And there's some panels and breakaway sessions as well. But the main stage is going to be so busy, I don't think anyone's going to want to leave it, to be honest.
That sounds awesome. So okay. So I thought you were going to take us through the next 2 days, but maybe one day is enough. So, okay. So I think everyone knows what they're going to get from a low carb perspective. You're going to hear some people arguing the benefits of low carb diet, and that's kind of one of the things that we always see. I think if you can highlight any of the things that are different to anyone who needs to be convinced about low carb, that would be interesting.
So we've got in day 2, it gets a little bit broader. My talk in the morning is called Future Food. And what I do in my talk is I look at the world as we eat at the moment. So I take a kind of broad view across the world of food, going into some living rooms. And then we look at the meat consumption from 1961 until current in those countries and just chat over the stats and what's trending. And what it comes down to at the end of it is we look at, further on in the talk, I look at all of the different currently trending diets in the world. And then I also talk over the commercial value. So it gets really interesting when you start to tie figures and values to the different kinds of diets that are trending, and also tying some celebrity faces to those diets. And then I've done a bit of research into what is available online, what isn't available, what's censored. And my talk ends with my 10-point policy plan for how to save on nutritional futures. So I'm really excited about that, because I don't talk low carb, I talk broad. And then that afternoon, let me pull this up so I don't get anything wrong. We talk a lot, in the morning as well, there's a really, really interesting talk by Dr. Georgia Eid, who's a psychiatrist, where she talks of metabolic psychiatry and the treatments of psychiatric conditions with metabolic and nutritional treatments. Also, Dr. Jayne Bullen, who's a psychotherapist who I love, because she brings such a different perspective on treating addiction. She focuses a lot on sugar addiction, but it's general. So it's around eating and food addiction and other addictions as well, relevant to everyone. And I really love those kinds of more mental health focused approaches to health and overall health. And then in the afternoon, we've got Joan Adams, who talks. She is definitely not a low carb advocate, but she talks about the ethics of dietary prescription and how ethics play into nutrition. Really, really interesting talk. Travis Noakes that day talks about cyberbullying. So again, it comes from a much more broad perspective. And then we have our ethics panel and some other, and then there's a really, really stunning end to the day 2, actually, which is one of my lifelong teachers, Suzanne Khan, who is from the School of Movement Medicine. She's doing, also again, she's not at all low carb focused. She's very much on a different kind of eating journey herself, and her focus in life is really around sustainability. She spent many, many years in the Amazon looking at sustainability, and of course how diet plays into sustainability is of her interest. She's giving a panel which is just to hold space and recognize the loss of life and malnutrition and hunger in the world at the moment. So that little session is one of the times where we all come together on the main stage and just hold a space of recognition for the massive losses that healthcare and individuals around the world have seen in the last year, and how that plays in. Of course, what's really interesting is how that affects food. So what we're seeing in Africa is severe malnutrition worsened by COVID, and many people around us in our communities around the world that are hungry. So just a really, really important time, I think, for me to really sit and recognize that being held by a beautiful, beautiful, strong person. And then that day ends with a nutritional perspectives panel where we, again, don't talk low carb. We talk about food systems. We've got some really, really interesting researchers on that panel, as well as somebody from Impact Amplifier, who's an investment funder in social incubation in Africa, bringing in a really interesting perspective. So some really interesting varied perspectives on day 2. We look a bit broader, we look at systems much more, and ethics. So another really exciting day. I'm so excited. I'm just kind of worried about when the breaks are and when I'm going to get to nap and sleep or kind of run and grab a tea. But there is access, just so you know, for those of you that are joining, you'll be able to access the content for 2 weeks after the event. So if you miss a talk or you have to do a school lift or have an emergency nap or whatever it is, have to dance in the garden, you can come back to that talk later on and watch it.
That's cool. At least Jason Fung is on day one to talk to everyone about fasting. So you don't need to stop to take a meal. You just call that a 36-hour, 48-hour fast.
You can challenge yourself through 3 days, 72.
Yeah, I mean, so I did an online Tony Robbins event like this, and they literally said, like, you don't need to eat, because everyone was like freaking out, and then they got you up in your chair and everyone had to like dance and then sit down. They wanted everyone in peak state in front of the screen the whole time. This is the most, I've never burned so many calories in a Zoom in my life before. It was insane.
Oh, that's awesome.
Yeah, it's hardcore. So, okay, so how do we actually sign up for this? So I know that there's a link in the comments, which I'd like.
Can I quickly talk about day 3, because your talk's in day 3, and I actually really wanted to mention. Or do you want to go on to? I'm going on and on about. But day 3, I'm not going to go into a lot of detail. But day 3 is another day that's really interesting, because there's a lot of there's a lot of medical talks as well, now that I'm looking at it. But in the morning, we've got Andrea Bradovich, who's talking about mindset and motivation and longevity, and then you straight after that, eating happiness. So I don't know a lot about your talk. Do you want to tell us quickly in summary, or do we have to save it?
Yeah. No, so it's really, since the real meal revolution came out, and we're trying to figure out, like, what is the revolution? Is it this fight against science? Is it a fight against business? Is it a fight? And actually, for me, it's much more about people taking back their power. And so you're taking back your power in a lot of ways. And I think that knowledge is obviously the most empowering thing, which is what I was speaking to earlier when you were talking about educating, the less educated about nutrition. And the problem that we have in the world is in many areas, by the way, in relationships, in wealth, and in nutrition, is that companies who make money from selling their products have been allowed to educate us on the need for their products, and they have been completely unencumbered. So they could say, you could even suggest that something's healthy by saying that your product has it, like, contains guarana, and people are like, oh my goodness, that must be a good thing, I'll buy it. So, like, it's totally barbaric the way advertising works. And the only reason I say it's barbaric is because I don't think people understand how easily habits and neural pathways are developed in the brain. And the problem is that in your first 5 years of life, you're basically a blank canvas, and anything that happens in your life, you can be you can be burnt into your mind that it is truth. And so, like, color and sweets equal fun. That will be a truth you carry through your life, for your whole life. And so you end up having a better association or love for, like, the color of Skittles than you do for the color of fresh produce. And that you take into your life forever and ever. And so my talk is about how that happens and the similarities and so how we teach people to develop their own neural pathways and program new associations, and how advertisers do it. And so I have, like, a suggestion as to what we can do to address at least part of the issue, which I had quite a lot of fun doing. And yeah, so for me, that's a really exciting, like, intro talk, which I hope to expand on for many years. That's kind of like that'll be my mark that I leave. So this is the very first chance people get to see that. Yeah. And so I was super excited about that. Only took me like 2 weeks to put together, all day, every day, and all night.
So I just want to quickly mention before we stop talking about the agenda, because I can't not mention that in the last afternoon we've got Brian Lenskers, who's a physician, a San Diego-based physician, Dr. Mark Cucciazella, who talks about deprescription of medication and kind of living a medication-free life. Robert Sivers, who's an obesity surgeon, who talks about therapeutic strategies for managing addiction. And then we have the SMHP, which is the Society for Metabolic Healthcare Practitioners, which is a USA-based NGO that's just been founded that uses the Nutrition Network trainings as its training arm, and an amazing group of doctors and specialists that are going to be sharing a panel there. And then we finish with a panel rounding it up with the Nutrition Network board, which is myself, Dr. Hasina Kaji, Neville Wellington, and Prof. Noakes himself. So such a busy 3 days. Can't wait though. It's going to be so nice to kind of gather, even though we're not getting to hug and chat and do all of those coffee date things, we're still getting to connect in a new way. So it's a new thing for all of us, and see how it goes. Hope it all goes well.
No, it sounds super exciting. So do you have to sign up on the day, or can you sign up right now?
Yeah, you can sign up now, ideally beforehand, but you can also sign up during the convention, and then you'll have access for, as I said, 2 weeks afterwards to the content. But much better to, if you can, join for as much of the live as possible, because there's conversation and things that happen live that you might miss out on.
Yeah, so I just wanted to add to that. So because I'm one of the speakers and I will be in my chat room while I'm speaking, and then so I'll answer questions that anyone has, like sort of in and around it, maybe for a little bit after the talk. So there'll be live chat, and so that'll be the same case with like Jayne Bullen and Robert Silas and everything. Is that right?
Yes, everyone's going to be there for their talks. And yeah, we'll see how it goes. So this is also new for all of us. It's like, here we sit, Here we are. We've had to accept this is it for now. We're hoping next year, this time, we'll be able to actually share a sparkling water together, but maybe not. Yeah. Maybe this is
sure it will happen. Well, look, it sounds like an amazing initiative. I'm super excited for it, and yeah, I'm kind of like quite proud of what's been achieved over the last 10 years. If I think back to Tim's article that he wrote in Discovery magazine in 2010, I think now it's 11 years later, and like I would like Cape Town to be seen as the epicenter of this nutrition movement, and this convention is a huge shift in that direction. It's making Cape Town stand like, I'm glad you said world, by the way. Like the USA, there's the World Series of baseball that like all the American teams. Like this is the World Series of nutrition, and it's here in Cape Town.
It is.
Yeah, so congrats, Jayne, and thanks for coming to chat to us. And
thank you so much. And thank you for all the work that you do, and the amazing work that we're seeing, and incredible, mind-blowing, inspirational results that we see coming out of your testimonials all the time, changing lives every day.
I love it. Yeah. Awesome, Jayne. We'll have a good stay on the line, but we're going to close the live. So bye, everyone. Have a wonderful weekend at the conference.